I don't know why you need it, but if you want it, you can have it.
We're good.
The recorder is on. This is the Bluff Town Council regular meeting. Today is April 5th, 2022. It is 6:08 p.m. Roll call.
Linda Sosa.
Jim Sayers.
Luann Hook.
Grant Murray.
Ann Lepinen. First item on the agenda is the approval of the Bluff Town Council regular meeting minutes of March 15th, 2022. Has everybody read them, and are there any changes, points of discussion?
Yes. The resolution on the alleys, I don't remember what number it is, and I don't have the minutes in front of me. But the approval of the resolution on the alleyways, I would like it to reflect that it does reflect that I abstained, but I would also like it to reflect that I have a conflict of interest, if possible.
Mayor, motion to approve with as Commissioner Sayers asked to make that change.
Second.
Any discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then it's unanimous. Then the next thing is the approval of the Bluff Town Council work session minutes of March 22nd, 2022. Any changes, modifications, any points of discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then this is public comment. There's a 3-minute time limit for each person wishing to comment. If you exceed that time without permission, the meeting controller, who I believe is Jim at this point, will mute you.
Oh,
Are there
okay.
are there any public comments? And if so, either unmute yourself or let us know somehow. All right. Seeing that there's no public comment, it's 6:11. We'll move into the unfinished business. The first one is the update on the priority telecommunications.
Okay, that was what I've been working on, and we're just still waiting for the GETS cards to arrive in the mail. And when they come, then we can move forward. But it's all submitted, and they said it would take 10 days, so it's probably going to be 2 weeks. But just let me know when they're here, and then I can do the next part.
Okay.
Thanks for working on that, Lou. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hopefully we won't need it before we get them in, but it seems like a good program. Get people that are involved in that sort of thing a little better access.
All right, moving on to number 2 on the CCC Design Review Team meeting today, and any updates on the Bears Ears celebration. Jim and Brant. Jim's muted.
Yes, thank you. We went through the agenda today, and we had 4 people present. 2 people from Dene Bikea and 2 from the town of Bluff. We have achieved $100,000 toward the fire suppression system that Dave Conine has gotten from a funding agency. So we have Brad is going to get the rest of that money, or excuse me, he's going to get the some estimates on what that would cost, the entire project, the more recent numbers, as I understand it. So that's good news. We went on to talk about a project director. This would be someone who is would be on a finite contract. We believe it might be hourly, so that was brought up, but someone who would be able to get this project underway and monitor it and probably share in the design possibilities. So we really don't have anybody on the committee that's able to do that. And we are at a point with our vision and so forth where we really need to get on the road with the finishing what is required in terms of remodeling in order to subdivide the building. So we're writing grants and we're moving towards some money, and it's time to start talking about a project manager. And that was a sort of a unanimous. There was a consensus that that was a good thing. Maybe grant writing would be separated out from that. We don't know, but it's still in the preliminary stages. But that's an initiative, an idea that may become an initiative very soon. With regard to the celebration, no one had really heard anything, but I did share that we would be, hang on a second, I've got to admit a bunch of people. And I'm glad I did admit them. We have, I did share that the playground, there's some questions about the playground, and so we wouldn't be able to allow children on the playground. It has not been completed an approval inspection or whatever. We're still working on that. So I was going to try to ask if the playground committee would share what particular structures on the playground are dangerous, or is it the whole thing or whatever. If we could just, because there are going to be some children at the 16th celebration, I'm sure, and we're going to put crime scene tape around it, but you know how kids are, so it's going to take some monitoring. So there's that, the playground question. I think people are going to want to tour the building, so I think I'm going to have to be there and run little tours and make sure the building is kept as clear as I can keep it, and just monitor everything so everything goes okay. The last I heard, they were going to have some porta potties, and they all have. They've planned these kinds of events before, so UDB is not. They know how to do that. So that's what's happening so far. Did I miss anything, Brent?
I think you had a good summary, Jim. That grant was 2 years at $100,000 per year. So we'll only be able to access the first 100,000 soon, and then the second one will follow by calendar, I think. But really, that it looks like that could be applied to fire suppression. So there's some things going on, a couple other grants that are really exciting that really we can't really talk much about. But I think the message is all is well in my estimation.
So I have a couple of questions about the grant. What grant is it?
It's from NDN. It's a Montana-based funding agency, and they, as Brant stated, it's $200,000 over 2 years, and it's really going to UDB. But David has expressed in the proposal that 100 of it go to this preparation of the building. So it's a good start, as far as I can tell.
And from what I understand, it was a South Dakota.
South Dakota.
South Dakota agency, Indian Affairs Agency.
Well, it's you've probably seen the initials NDN, and that's the organization.
And so it's all grant, no loan or anything.
Correct.
Well, good. That's a good job.
I think so too.
So is that a sort of grant that you could, oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
Is it the sort of grant that maybe you could get somebody to do the work with the promise of the other half coming in a year?
I don't know if there's any grant like that. You'd have to find someone who is willing to do something like that.
Well,
And yeah.
I was just thinking, like, with the grant in place, you might be able to get the fire suppression going and pay them the base of it with the other coming.
I think the other half is going to Utah Dinebekea's efforts separate from that. So it's a kind of a bifurcated grant.
Okay.
And 100,000 is set aside toward the fire suppression system that, of course, is good for both organizations.
Okay. Thank you.
So we don't know yet how much the fire suppression system could cost, right? I mean, this could be like half of it.
Correct. I'm planning that this is probably half. I mean, if it comes in less than 200,000, that's great. That'll be wonderful. But I think it's safe for us to plan on it 200,000.
The other thing, I forgot what I was going to say was directly related to that. Sorry, when it comes back, I'll chime back in.
That'll be too late, Brent. Got to do it now. Any other questions about what happened today or about the 16th celebration or anything that, not that I have a fund of information, but.
I have another.
I know.
Still, they were going to get a tent, right, to set up for people to eat. Is that right?
That's the last I heard, yes.
Okay, so I have a question on the project manager piece.
Yes.
So I'm assuming this is just a discussion, that there's no discussion as to employment terms or how people are going to advertise for this or anything like that we should be voting on at some point.
Correct. This is an agreement in principle that this is a good idea, and that's about as far as it got today. And I was pretty specific about that, it was to sound the committee to see how they felt about that. They were all in favor. We're at a point where, we need to start getting some things nailed down. And there's no one on the committee that has the time to do this. There are a couple of people who might have the ability, but we really need somebody who's expressed purpose, and it would be part of the construction costs, as I understand it. That's the way it would go. The salary of this person would simply be added into the overall project cost. We kind of know what the project is. I mean, that, Mayor. I mean, it's pretty basic. It's flooring, paint, modification of the bathrooms, the ceiling replacement, maybe doors, but essentially that's it.
So I was just checking to be sure that we didn't need to put it on the agenda specifically the next time for approving to spend money for a project manager. You think this will all be built into the grant or the bigger picture?
I don't know, but I guess we'll know by the next meeting a little more.
We're hopeful that it'll all be built in. And
one of the meetings, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just another question out there that has to be answered.
When is your next meeting?
Tuesday. Next Tuesday.
Whenever this meeting is I like to get them going together. So if it's Tuesday, it's Tuesday. Yeah.
Anybody else have a question?
I guess, what about food? Are they, they're bringing food?
The last I heard, they were asking if they could dig a pit for a barbecue. And I said, as long as you don't hit an old septic line, I'm sure it would be, who cares, right?
Yeah.
We will be informing the fire department that there is this function taking place. And, I don't think beyond that we have to worry if we do. They may use the stoves in the kitchen. My sense is that they may want to use some of the refrigeration for the night before. They'll do a traditional butchering, and the next day they may cook it. I don't know how it's going to work, but there may be some use of the kitchen. But I'll be there, and maybe whoever else wants to be there to sort of monitor what's going on. And so far, it sounds pretty up and up.
So the one thing we talked about for writing the fire suppression grant, the procurement, was maybe including that as part of the as part of the build job, as part of the large grant. You know, if we hired someone to try to do that. So that was another thing that I just remember. That was what I had forgotten to talk about. So,
Yeah.
So I guess actually Brent mentioned this already, that there are other grants being pursued.
Yeah, in a kind of a, going along slowly but surely. We just got a new director of the USDA in the state of Utah. And the interaction that I've had with the USDA so far has not been entirely satisfactory. And I think I may just call the new director. It's a woman named Weaver. She was actually with RCAC for a while and some other groups that have done some work in Utah. But I may just give her a call and see where I can get something like this to land, where it has the most chance of success with the USDA.
and the other thing, Jim, last time I'll interrupt, is I think Dave Conine's planning to be in Bluff in a few weeks with some people looking at that building a little bit. So that's kind of down the road a few weeks. He won't be here for Easter, and I won't either, Jim, but Dave's planning on a visit in the near future.
Thanks, you guys, for pushing this forward. Sounds good.
One
Thank
last thing is, have you set a policy on keys so that we have a limited number of keys out there? Because my understanding is there's at least one non-town, non-UDB related person with a key, and we should not, it's my opinion, we shouldn't be doing that.
We did set a policy today. There was consensus, unanimous, that the council members, or the committee members should each have one, and the heads of the respective entities should each have one. So you have one, Woody has one. There's 6 keys out there, four for the committee and one for each boss.
So like when you're out of town, Brent, do you want to leave your key with somebody else just in case of emergencies or whatever? And I'm also wondering about the fire department. They always had a key to the buildings in case there's something going on.
We'll need to
Always get in, but
we'll need to think through. We were just trying to slow down the proliferation a little bit today, so we'll need to think through critical key possession. It's going to be a public building. It's going to be open. The offices inside will have individual locks. So I feel like as we approach occupation, the lock situation will ferret itself out. Did
it come up that Heather Patine, who's going to be setting up her office in the modular, she actually needs different doorknobs. I mean, she needs to have a secure location. So her doorknobs should be different from, all the other keys are like masters in a way.
She missed meeting.
No, Heather wasn't there and it didn't come up. She's probably going to need wireless too. So I don't know how that's going to work out, but as far as the actual space is concerned, I don't think it's a problem. We already have, she has expressed an interest in the portable, and the food pantry is already in there. So I don't know. As soon as we get word on what her needs are, we'll jump on it.
You might want to check with Emory, because I don't know that Emory ran a line up that direction, because they were only doing it to the new school, as far as I know.
Right.
Okay.
I went over to the school the other day to check the signal, and I have two signals. One's Adam's house, and one's Jen's house, LaRue's house across the street, the Jen's house. And my thought is if Heather needed to move in, maybe we could borrow a signal till we get the Emory installed. I haven't ordered an install, not knowing where to do it. So we're still a little ways away from making an Emory install. Does it go into the principal's office and everybody on campus uses it? That sort of thing. That decision has not been made.
Anything further on this, on the CCC? All right, then just a brief update on the Dark Sky Committee meeting. We had our first meeting on March 24th, and pretty much the big thing that came from it is having a follow-up conversation with Dr. Barentine about the scope of services that he could provide to help us with the dark sky designation. I spoke to him via email, and he broke down that he could do a full management of the project, complete with nomination for the IDA, collect factual information, represent Bluff in communications, revise documents, and bottom line, the estimate is around $20,000 to do that. Or he's willing to enter into an agreement that limits the scope of what he does, in which case it would be less than the estimate. Or we could do it as needed and pay kind of as needed. And we haven't met again. We'll be meeting, I believe, on Friday. And so we'll talk about it. I did, just for the council's information, we do have enough money in the budget if we wanted to do start to finish. So the committee will talk about it and talk about what possibilities we think we could do. A lot of it's been pointed out by Sarah Barak that we have a lot of it started already with the education and programs and that type of thing. So we'll go over his various areas of expertise and I'll bring back what we think we might want to do in terms of hiring him or not. Questions?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mayor, a little dark sky update at the CCC. I blacked out the outside lights today with some flashing tape, just the sides and the top, so they're going to be in compliance until they're changed out. There's a couple more to do at the CCC, but I have done all the horizontal and vertical lights, just kind of mask them. So we'll one dark night, we'll turn the lights on over there.
Did you work on figuring out what we need to do, Brant, on a permanent basis?
Yeah, the lights are going to have to be replaced, Mayor. And my idea at the CCC would be part of the construction, the budget, the retrofit budget. So I thought we'd just try to bring the light. I decided to bring the lights, try to bring them into more of a compliant situation. I want to get that illuminator and check to see what they are now. But there's a lot less light coming out of those outdoor fixtures tonight than there was this morning.
And just a couple comments. The school lights have either been turned off or severely shielded because they're not too glaring lights coming down, and other people that live closer might have a better idea, but that was an instant thing last week. So appreciate you working with them to get those toned down. And then the International Space Station goes over once in a while, and there are apps to track it, and it might be something that would be a dark sky, bright stars sort of event to see when it's coming over. It just came over a day or two ago, and it was fairly far north, but it's something that people are interested in and they can't see in the city. So it might be something that would be an easy activity towards our designation. And for people's interest, it's not a star, but it's also fun to kind of see it go over.
I talked with I met with Superintendent Nielsen and his staff, and within, I'd say 36 hours, they had shielded those back lights, and they're working at looking at any of the other lights that they have. So I was very appreciative that they got right on it.
It made a world of difference.
Yeah. All right, then number 4. I see, Lou, that you're operating the audio visual. Did we move forward with Craig Benally, or did that ball get kind of pushed aside?
No, he came last for the planning and zoning special meeting that we had last week, the 24th or 5th, somewhere in there. He came and it was great. What's on YouTube now, if you search YouTube and look for our little emblem that is the oval Bluff, Utah emblem, you need to search on YouTube for Town of Bluff. Don't put Utah in or any of that, but you should be able to see us on YouTube right now. And it's the screen. I did away with trying to use the cameras because there's nothing going on here. And this way, anybody who's watching the meeting later can see the whole screen. So it comes live right now, and it's probably 10 or 15 seconds delay. And then it doesn't get uploaded to watch at a later time until like overnight. But then it's on. So if you go to our YouTube channel, it's there. And Craig helped me to show me how to get that source. Tonight, it did not go the same way, but luckily there was a pickleball player from the fort over here, one of the young missionaries, and he knew he got me on. It's a different way, but we're on. And
Okay.
so we're YouTubing right now.
So, but back to my question, what are we doing with Craig Benally?
Okay, I would love to have his help. It doesn't come naturally to me, and it takes an extra hour for me to come up here and get it set up and get it going. I think he might be able to do it from home, but I don't know. But it would be nice if we had somebody doing it. He came and was great. I did not feel comfortable asking him to come again since we hadn't decided if we could hire him.
Do we have to advertise for that position, or can we just hire him?
We could take a vote and hire him.
I make a motion that we hire him for $25 an hour, or for per hour, or for any increment of an hour that he spends on this technology. And from now on out, I can notify him. I have his number, and I can text him when we're going to have a meeting, and we'll work it out from there.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Any discussion?
He's very helpful. And if he's in town, if he's not in town, we can cover for him. But if he's here and can do it, it would
Take a burden off of you
keep
guys.
going. But we have these meetings in planning and zoning. Planning and zoning is a little easier for me to do because I don't have to be involved in the meeting so much.
Let's start with the meetings. Are you guys thinking about go ahead and using him for the P&Z too? Is that part of what we're thinking about, y'all?
I think it's fine as far as my motion is concerned. If they need him, then that's good too. We need to have someone who's dedicated to this, I think. Someone who is not trying to follow the meeting or trying to take notes or actually paying attention to the content of the meeting. To have somebody who's dedicated to the technology.
And they'll also understand this speaker problem more than I do.
So we also probably need something written up that says something like he comes in 15 minutes before the meeting. We need to know who's letting him in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Something that he would sign. I mean, he would be contract labor, but still we need to have something that spells out what it is.
Send me something that you want to see there in an email, Linda, just in real briefly, and I'll take it to him and we'll get it done.
Any other points of discussion, or are we ready to vote?
If Craig would get there, if we could sign on 5 minutes ahead, I'd appreciate that, because I always feel like I'm holding the meeting up when it's over 6 o'clock. So I'd like to have him there early to get us started.
Right.
Let's stick with the motion. The motion is to hire him at $25 an hour or any increment thereof. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then Jim, can you work out the details and bring that back to us?
Yes.
So then is it okay if I ask him, like when it's planning and zoning and whatnot, I can have him tomorrow night as planning and zoning?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
let me text you in the morning and we'll figure this out.
Okay, it's tomorrow night at 6:00.
Right.
And I think I can be up here.
6 or 7?
6.
Okay.
And we pay at the end of at the start of the new month.
Okay.
Linda, could you repeat that? That didn't come clear through.
So we pay once a month at the start of the month.
Any hours she accrued in February, you pay in March. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
All right, then moving to the update on Bluff's fuel reduction progress. I got an email, I emailed Duncan Fuchs to find out where we were, and he said the legislature had funded the request, the CAT fire request at $1 million, and that it was anticipated the Bluff's fuel reduction project was ranked high enough to get into that pool of money, although they had requested 1.5 million. But it looks like we'll get in. He'll keep us posted. And he's put the same project into another proposed grant asking for money, and he'll keep us posted on that. So that was on March 21st. So I haven't followed up with him. I thought I wouldn't do it before 30 days. Any questions, thoughts? Okay, number 6, the irrigation system at West Park. So Paul Martini and Dudley Beck, I don't know if anybody else worked on it, but they worked on Carol Shook was definitely hands-on. They worked on the irrigation system and put in a system that I think Paul designed, and it was way under what he thought the budget would be. He was asked us if he could go as high as 1,000, and it's way under that. I haven't seen the exact bill, but it was under 500 for him to get it done. So that means we should have water down at West Park without leaks and drizzle and all of that. And then there was a question regarding removal of 2 dead trees in the fire pit. I'm not quite sure what trees we're talking about, but if we have dead trees, to me, it makes sense to have those removed. Anybody have a different thought on that?
I talked to Paul about it, and he said that they should be cut, not dug out, but just getting them cut, which is simpler.
What a fantastic thing for those guys to do, Paul and Dudley. And I appreciate it. It's very Bluff-like. People show up and do things, and it's just crazy. Great.
Well, and actually, Steve Helgerson also loaned them his trencher, which they absolutely had to have. So that was great.
Thank you, Steve.
And I appreciate them asking about the dead trees, but because some of them are historic and whatnot, but I appreciate them asking. It seemed kind of like a committee decision, but I do appreciate them checking those kind of things.
Lou, do you know which trees they are?
No, I don't know. And I know those aren't anything to worry about down there. So if they're dead, I'd say cut them down.
And then the fire pit. I'm not real clear. Apparently, the fire chief has said we should take the fire pit out, although to me, if we just used it as a planter or refilled it, would serve the same purpose. What did all of you think? Or
so you're suggesting like fill it in with dirt?
We could do that, make a planter out of it.
The way the trend has been with fire, I think it would behoove us not to have a fire pit there, Mayor. So I agree with that idea, and however we need to do it. I'd turn it into something green. If it's got irrigation, sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, if it's close to the to a water source, it would, you can plant something there.
I think, and there may not be any way to know the history of it, but there may be someone that knows history of it. Because, sometimes when you remove something that's been there forever, people get upset, or the person who gave it gets upset. So I don't think it would hurt to ask around if anyone knows what its history is.
Is it a hole in the ground?
No.
It's one of those metal fire pits.
Okay.
Let's get a little more information on it then, and then come back to that later on in the month. And I'm assuming we'll be getting a bill from Paul with the cost of materials and such, if we haven't already. Okay, moving to new business. Number 7 on the action to execute a deed. I'm going to ask to table that at this point.
Do you need a vote?
Probably a good idea.
I motion to table that
Second.
in lieu of more information.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then we have 3 ordinances that are kind of sitting. One is reviewing the light ordinance that we currently have, looking at the edits to the zoning ordinance that planning and zoning passed off, and looking at the animal ordinance that planning and zoning passed off. And the animal ordinance needs to be fleshed out quite a bit more. After I talked to Sheriff Torgerson, he raised the same questions that we've all been raising. It's like, okay, will the sheriff's deputies be able to enforce it because we don't have a place to take the animals, we don't have a plan for the animals, we don't have a justice court, we don't have, and he walked through all the same things that we had talked about. And the bottom line is it would be on a case-by-case basis. It would be whether or not somebody was really available, and it would depend on what other steps we have in place. And at this point, we don't have those things in place. So the animal ordinance I did not put on for a work session, but I'd like to have a work session to go over the lighting ordinance. And I sent to everybody, I hope I did anyway, the notes I'd made in the edits to the zoning ordinance, so you can make your own notes and comments, kind of be able to have some talking points on that. So I'm just wondering when people would be available to meet. And I'll throw out, before you do that, I am going to be in Seattle all of next week, and I would like personally to use the time, be able to work on these ordinances and do some work on the 2022 budget, the revisions to the budget. And so I'm suggesting that we cancel next Tuesday's meeting and reconvene, and on I believe it's the 19th. Kind of
Second.
Okay, are you moving for the cancellation?
Yes, ma'am. That was my motion.
All in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, so with that in mind, going back to a date, what could people do for a work session? Get to my calendar. We're meeting the 19th. I'd like to do it that week, but I'll probably get back into town physically on the 19th. So
Let's plan on that week, Mayor, and give you time to get your work done while you're gone and then schedule it. Or you want to do it now? You want to schedule it now?
I'd like to do it now. If we could do it, say, Thursday, the 21st.
What time?
I'm open on that day, so does anybody have a preference, morning, afternoon? Lou, generally like 10:30?
Yeah, 10 or 10:30.
I think there's yoga in the morning. Let me look at that calendar. Gotta mute my thing first a second.
What's going on?
Luann's looking at the calendar. If we're doing it through Meet Google, though, it really doesn't matter if we tape the work session on YouTube. I mean, it'd be nice, but it really doesn't make a difference if there's yoga. We could still meet.
If we don't need to YouTube a work session, then we can do it whenever. But
Shall
I'm
we
pretty
just-
sure that that's it from 10 to 11.
The yoga is from 10 to 11?
I think so. I'm not sure. I can't find
Well,
the calendar. Carol
let's take a
sent it,
pic-
but I don't have it. Carol, if you're on, maybe you can tell us what happens Thursday, the 21st.
Or we could just set it at 10 or 10:30, and if it's available, we can YouTube it, and if it's not, we just do what we're doing, have been doing in the past.
This is on the 21st, right?
Correct.
10 o'clock?
That works for me.
Do we need a vote on that?
No, I'm just waiting to hear if there's a conflict by anybody. Linda, Brant, Lou, does that
I'm
work?
good. Good here.
It'll work.
Okay, then moving to the CDBG, required attendance at the workshop on April 26th. Jim, are you going to be able to cover that? Because I will then go to the other meeting in Ogden on the Utah Rural Leadership Academy.
Yes, I'm planning on it.
I will send you the information I got today then, so that you can tell them that you are going to be attending. And then let me see where I've got that. We have to have a second public hearing for the CDBG grant, and I'm just looking at what I figured out here. We could do it on Tuesday, May 17th, and that would be at 5:30.
Let's schedule that.
Does that work for everybody? So that's half an hour before.
Which meeting?
I already have that in my calendar. Did we already set that date?
No, I just sent it out as the date I was going to propose so people can
Oh,
look
okay.
at the calendars.
I got it.
What date?
So it's May 17th at 5:30. So I'm going to skip down to 10, which is the fiscal year 2023, the tentative budget and the hearing for that. We will need to do a public hearing for that, for the tentative 2023 budget. And I was thinking that just do that like at 5 o'clock on the 17th. So we'd have 2 public hearings, one on the budget 2023 and to set the property tax rate. And then at 5:30, the CDBG, and then our regular meeting at 6.
That sounds like a good idea.
And
Anybody
this is
opposed
the-
to doing it that way?
This is the amended budget, right?
No, this is the tentative budget
Oh, okay.
for 2023.
Okay.
Most likely what I'll do, just for purposes of planning, is to try to have the amended 2022 budget jammed in there for review prior to that date. But I need to set the date on the 2023 budget because there's a cutoff date for doing these things. So I'm kind of working backward.
That's a good plan. 2 public hearings and a meeting is just what we need. That's a great idea.
So I want to use that as a moment to say it looks like we may have an accountant on board. So I will keep you informed of that as we move a little later into the week. Any questions about that schedule? And I'm working with CDBG on the application finalization. But there's really nothing new to share on it, just that I'm cleaning up loose ends.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's fun. There's a new person in charge of CDBG, so it's interesting going from Jade to Tamara. Then I sent out to everybody a letter that was drafted for a stance on the gravel pit, the concerns we might have above town, and on the potential Bears Ears land exchange. Did everyone look at that letter? Are there thoughts on it?
These are really 2 separate issues, aren't they? They're not really tied. You're not we're not suggesting that Sonderegger trade land or anything like that. It's just 2 separate issues, right?
There are 2 separate issues in that. One is the proposed trade out by Sitla of lands, and then one is the expansion of the gravel pit with a whole different lessee than was proposed and which was approved by San Juan County. There is a tie-in in some regard because it may be that that bench is not one of the proposed Sitla trade-outs. They may be holding on to that for a particular gravel expansion purpose. But right now, that these are 2 separate issues. We're just alerting Sitla to the fact that we were not approached by Sonderegger when they gave the lease to Sonderegger, and that there's no underlying mitigation impact plan that they've laid out. And then the second piece is talking about, the proposed land changes, which there's a meeting, I think, I'm going off my memory, but I think it's April 28th or such. So we, on those trade outs. So we should get the letter in sooner rather than later.
Do you need a motion to send this letter, Mayor? I liked it. I thought it was succinct and to the point, and I'd like for you to send it if council approves that.
I'll second.
Any discussion, any concerns? All right, then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I voted aye in favor of contacting Sitla just so that we keep a voice in the things that they're doing. I'm not sure we really have any say, but I would like them to consider us in their plans and then what they're doing.
I agree. So I will send this and I'll make a call to Sitla tomorrow. All right. Number 12. On March 25th, I had a really fun meeting with the mayors of Moab, Monticello, Blanding, and myself. And then we realized that we should have included Spanish Valley. No, not Spanish Valley. I'm drawing a blank. Who did we leave out? Somebody help me with who else is
Castle Valley.
Who?
Castle Valley.
Yes, thank you. I knew it had the valley and I couldn't pull it up. So they'll be invited to, that mayor will be invited to our next meeting. But we just used it as a general introduction. It was set up by Bailey Heglin, who is the mayor of Monticello. And we just talked about common concerns and common points of interest. And it's really nice. The three of them are newly elected. So it was an odd position to be in, to be the senior one on the committee. But I told them, don't ask me for any hints or expertise. I'm still swimming, but it was really good. And so if there are things that anybody in the community sees or any concerns that council sees that would be well addressed by getting the mayors all involved. And I think that the mayor of Blanding made a really interesting statement. He said that looking at the philosophies of each city and town, it's highly improbable that we'd come up with all four of us agreeing on exactly the same way to approach the same problem, but that he was really appreciative and he's really engaged in having these discussions so that we can exchange ideas and kind of move more forward as a group, as opposed to four of us appearing in front of the commission or in front of the state legislature. So I really appreciate that got set up. And I think we're going to do it quarterly. So any ideas or concerns, let me know. I'd be happy.
Yeah, I have one.
What is that?
I think the county needs to pay a little more attention to the solid waste, the dump up there below White Mesa. The winds up there are ferocious. It's spreading trash all over the four corners. There are solutions to this. There are structures that you can build, and where you can recycle things easier, and you can contain that blowing trash. Many places have them. There's some expense involved, but I think that dump is outdated. It looks to me like it's obsolete, and I think there's better ways of handling the volume that they have up there. They should be baling that stuff actually, but that's another. The solutions are out there, but I just think that the county needs to pay more attention to that dump.
I'll definitely bring that up, and then let me feel out Mac about getting this on the county's agenda too, and see if we shouldn't be making that a pretty big countywide concern.
Thank you.
Like I said, anybody else have an idea of what we could cover, let me know. So I went to this webinar on First Amendment audits, and I had no idea what I was going to, but it looked interesting. It's put on by the Utah Local Government Trust, which is our insurer. And it was short. It was, I think, half an hour. But there's a group of people or organizations of people who are going around to cities, towns, county, any government agency, and going in with cameras, video equipment, most of the time masked, so you can't see who they are, and they're filming, or they're trying to see how open and First Amendment friendly you are. So they had a couple of clips of why this is important, and one of the clips was So somebody comes into your public building and they have a video camera or their phone and they want a video and they're walking around, and unless you have signage that says restricted employees only or something similar, most of your office is vulnerable. So for instance, in using the community center offices, if somebody were to come in when we're working in there, they could ideally, if the file room, the secure room door were open, they could enter that and videotape it. And the hope is to catch you where you say, no, 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 don't do that. It's off limits. And then they say, how would I know that? And so it's a monitoring system that has really built in popularity. While we were in this webinar, one of the towns or cities got hit with that exact thing while we were watching the video. So I went ahead, and I'm hoping I have your support. I ordered signs, 2 signs that say restricted area employees only, to put on the rooms that have sensitive information, which would be the file room, and it would be the office that Linda is in as the clerk, where the financial data could possibly be open. So like she had the checkbook open and somebody came in to the door, they're not violating anything by filming it. If she's got that on the door, at least you could tell them to stop. And then they showed some good ways and bad ways to handle this. The bad way was confrontational.
The video talked about welcoming them and asking if you could help, but the restricted backroom area, Mayor, good job on those signs. That's what we need to do to protect our offices. So we just stand in First Amendment rights. You need to act accordingly and allow them to visit the spaces that are not restricted.
Right. I mean, you certainly wouldn't win anything if you had that sign on every single door and every access point. But I tried to look at it from where's our information that's most vulnerable and private, which would be those 2 rooms. But I do need a motion and a vote to be able to have those put up. I didn't go to that extent. I just purchased them.
So made, or Grant, I don't know.
I'll second Jim's motion.
Any thoughts, questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. The next item is there's a roundtable discussion at the Career Expo at Utah State University on the Blanding campus. And it's from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. And I was invited. It was invitation only, or is invitation only, and I was invited, but I will be in Seattle. Yeah, I'll be in Seattle. And so I wondered if I could substitute somebody, and yes, I can. There'll be lunch. So there's a perk, lunch. Does anyone want to volunteer to go? It's talking about education and job markets, focusing on private, local, regional, tribal employers, aim to discuss and address challenges and opportunities for students.
I'm going to be out there. I can't go.
I might be able to go. But right now it's open anyway.
So it's an RSVP. So Linda, why don't forward this to you? Actually, I'm going to take it out of my book right now. I'll give it to you tomorrow before I leave. And then if you want to go, the contact information is there.
Okay.
And if Linda can't go, either of the other 2 of you are certainly welcome. It could be interesting. Anything further on that, or should we move to 15? Then there was a report There was a meeting up in Monticello, a public meeting of the Division of Water Quality on March 30th. I went up to that because originally they were going to do one of the public meetings here on the 31st and they canceled it. And when I inquired about the cancellation, I was told it was because of COVID numbers. They were trying to limit the amount of travel that the state employees did. It was really interesting from a informational piece. The whole presentation was pretty much geared to the Navajo Nation settlement on water adjudication rights. And so it focused on just what it sounds like, the Navajo Nation's rights for water. And they had huge budgets to be able to implement this. It's been approved and it's moving through the system now. It'll take a couple of years. When they're done doing the adjudication on the Navajo, and this is the Navajo Nation in Utah, not the entire Navajo Nation. This was just on our part. But then when they're done with the Navajo Nation, they'll move into doing the water adjudication in Monticello, Blanding, Bluff, kind of coming on down. So in a few years, we should be seeing something similar where they start looking at it, who holds what water rights, whether they've perfected them, whether they're using their water rights, because if you don't use your right, you lose it. And so I think it's something that we probably need to have a discussion about and look at our water rights and what our usage is.
Good.
It is online if anybody wants to see one of the presentations. You just go to Division of Water Quality public hearing, and it was all taped. And Commissioner Adams was there, so the questions I were going to ask, he asked for me. So he was a step ahead of me, but he asked some good questions about the contour of the reservation throughout the Bluff area and how it was affected. Then moving to number 16, the LEPC meeting on March 23rd. That is, I think we meet quarterly and it's kind of on law enforcement and within San Juan County. So there's probably 40 people who are invited to the meeting. And usually there's a speaker. And unfortunately, I left my notes in another book.
LEPC means.
Why are you asking me that, Brian?
Sorry. Law
That's
enforcement.
legislative economic development or economic.
No.
I don't know.
It's
No.
law enforcement something.
Oh, okay.
That's good. That's fine. I thought that's
It's
planning.
Usually they have a speaker that comes in and talks. Well, that's where actually this Kathy Orcutt on the telecommunications, where I heard that and brought it back.
No.
So that's usually, it's a topic that gets covered, and usually with a speaker. And I apologize for having that out of my brain.
I'm sorry I asked the question. It looks like Law Enforcement Planning Committee to me.
It could be. It could be. I just call it LEPC because it's easy, and then I can't remember what it is. And it's chaired by Tammy Gallegos. Then number 17 is I had a meeting with some of the folks from the fort, and we talked about the fort volunteers and missionaries wanted to do an Easter egg hunt on the 16th of April. So I had that meeting with the two volunteers who are Bill Spears and I'm trying to look. I just drew a blank on her first name. And so we talked about what could be done. I sent out through Linda, I think, an email to a bunch of people, or maybe I did it, but who wanted to get together and do an Easter egg hunt, color eggs and all of that. So this is the game plan. on this, during the week of the 16th or thereabouts, anyone who wants to volunteer to color and dye eggs on their own or color and dye eggs can go to the fort on the date that they choose to do dyeing. They're going to do it as a volunteer group. Most of the people I spoke with who wanted to do it were more inclined to get together in smaller groups or do it at home. But the eggs should go to the fort because they're going to store them in their refrigerator, and ideally by the 15th, which is a Friday. Right now, I believe, let me back up. We agreed that 12 dozen eggs should do it. The fort would be responsible for 6 dozen. The town would be responsible for 6 dozen. I did not bring this to a vote because I spent my own money, and it was not a lot of money. I got 150 little plastic eggs, and then Linda picked up some treats to put into the eggs. We're asked to limit the candy. So there's some fun things, stickers and those types of things. And then the plastic eggs will get filled by the volunteers at the fort with the things that have been provided by people. And then the colored eggs and the plastic eggs will be hidden on the morning of the 16th. People are going to meet at 8:00 a.m. And then the hunt will be at 8:30 a.m. And we all decided that age appropriate would be a good idea so that the little kids don't get run over by the big kids. So there'll be 3 separate areas where the eggs are hidden. So probably 3 and under, roughly 4 to 6 and then older. And the reason we chose that early in the morning is that is the same day UDB has their event, and we did not want to have, like 10,000 cars. Hiroko Yamamoto is doing the posters to put up, and then she'll distribute them to the fort and then to probably the community center and put them up around town. It was generally agreed that because this is the first time in a while since this has been done, and because there could be a tendency to have way too many people, just kind of keep it locally advertised, not do a big blast to people. But for those who want to contribute eggs or participate in hiding the eggs or whatever, Linda, by my bailing out of town, has become the default person for the town. But everything is pretty much in place at this point. We've also ordered through Cisco eggs, and Linda will pick those up tomorrow. So we got a very good price on eggs, and a couple people are donating eggs from their chickens. Thoughts, questions?
Sounds like a good plan. Through all this and getting it going.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun, and if the weather's good, it'll be even more fun. Jim, did you have something on the CIB meeting for March 29th?
Yeah, it was a pretty basic meeting. It was just going over the list that Michael Bryant has and asking us to take the list and prioritize it. We were also sent a tool that they use to evaluate these projects, but I have not opened the tool yet. We only have 3 items on the CIB project list. One is the CCC. The other are I was just brainstorming when he asked me a month or 2 ago. I just said repair of street in downtown Bluff. It's pretty extensively damaged, as we know. And then there's a secondary water system that's been on the CIB list for time immemorial. And we are to prioritize those. I'm to have that in by Thursday. And I have a couple of ideas. One is, I haven't done this yet, but I wanted to sort of communicate with the council here. I was given a name of someone up in the Office of Budget and Planning up in Salt Lake. And apparently there's some money that may be set aside. and I'm going to hit that person up tomorrow and see if there's any money that would be available for the CCC. And if there is availability and an application process, I will go that direction, and I will put the downtown street on the priority list. And I think we're talking about a lot of money. I guess Michael is talking about $1 million or something for really the street. The Black Locust being the big part of it, but the old highway, it's completely collapsed, and it's just not really much left of it anymore, as we all know. So it will really depend if they're not forthcoming up at Salt Lake, or at least they're not hopeful, then I think that we need to get this CCC thing done, and I may prioritize that. So what does the council think of that?
I think the CCC is the priority for me.
Right. Yeah. If I can be hopeful for 100,000 from the Office of Management and Budget, and apparently there's some grant money that you and I were speaking with the commissioner about, Mayor. If that sounds hopeful, then I will put my eggs in that basket and prioritize the downtown street.
So I like your idea of the CCC and maybe matching grant, because we've got that other 100,000. So if they would match that and then split it 50-50 on however much it turns out, it may not take a whole 100,000, but split it. I think that would be awesome. The other thing I've wondered about CIB, and I haven't ever heard of them really doing the project, but instead of focusing on the cars through town, I'm kind of still thinking we need to get the pedestrian bicycle access for everybody to get around town, get across the wash, add to that bridge, get a safe sidewalk into the school. So if they're interested in any of that sort of thing, I'd put higher priority on that than the street, keep the street going slow and get some people on bikes and walking.
Yeah, what you're talking about is not on the list, and whatever we have on the list is what we're going to prioritize. So that is not on the list, but just a related discussion we had with the commissioner was if we want to go whole hog and take our annual money that we get for, what is it, C roads money, and
Right.
if we want to commit that annually for 20 or 30 years or whatever, we can get everything we want from CIB. They like big giant projects like that. If you look at their list, they're just these multi-million-dollar projects. And they would loan us money to get all of the streets in town done at once. The commissioner was very favorable about that, toward that idea. And we would simply commit all of our C Road money to payback over the next, I don't know how many years. What were they talking about, Ann? 40 years or 30?
Well, he was talking about it being a 10-year request where we commit 10 years.
Right,
and,
10 years.
Yeah, and then you take whatever the amount is that we get, which is roughly 42,000 ballpark, higher or lower, and then we would commit that money, and they would loan us money and give grant money, and the loan. Commissioner Adams was convinced he could get it as low as 1%, maybe 0.5%, or maybe even more of it at a 0%. So he was kind of between 0 and 1% for the whole package.
And so in answer to your question, Luann, if we, and I will, we'll continue these conversations, but this isn't the only CIB go-round. This is just the next one. So we can talk about that. But a package like that would include a lot of stuff, probably the kinds of bicycle trails that we're looking for alongside the road and other stuff too. So.
And dust is a problem on some of these graveled roads, but it would change everything if you had everything all slick and paved in town too. So we probably need some public input priorities.
So Jim,
Yeah.
you're going to go ahead and get that submitted based on what we have on the list right now.
I am, and as I said, I'm going to give a call up to the Office of Management and Budget tomorrow and see what I can discover. And but I think the CCC, it just has to be a priority. We have to get this thing subdivided, and the only way we're going to do it is to get that remodeling piece completed. The only problem is, of course, CIB money just takes a long time to get into your bank. I mean, even the best case would be, it'd be at least 8 or 9 months.
Well, good luck.
Anybody else? All right. Then we'll move to number 19. Reagan White Salucci had asked if Bluff would have a community liaison person to serve on the Community Garden Committee. And so I see we have Irene Hamilton on. She was willing to consider doing that. So maybe we could hear, well, she's giving a thumbs up. So Irene's name will be sent over. So Irene, you're okay with doing that? Thank you.
Yes, I am. And I'll need input from all of you about the design of the community garden. I think Jim said something about individual families having like a grow pod. There are different ways to have a community garden. So we'll have to talk about the design. If you've been at the community garden, the water system's been kind of laid out, but there's work to be done still. And last year we were working out there every Saturday. So I don't know what our schedule will be this year, but it's pretty neat. And recently Yes Tomorrow and other entities built an arbor or a chao out at the mission that will serve as an outdoor classroom for Regan and other individuals. Yeah.
Thank you, Irene.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
And I believe this is just a volunteer position, right? I'm just like your voices as I'll be, the communication.
Yes.
Correct.
The messenger. And on the Utah State University website, they're hiring a community garden coordinator. So you might pass the word around for, what was the rate? $16 an hour. So somebody probably could, $16 an hour. And it'd be like between 20 to 29 hours a week is what they're advertising. So.
Thank you, Irene, for doing that. Lou?
I just wanted to add something that I've been reading about are the composting for towns and getting rid of some of the trash and some of the methane. And it crossed my mind that the community gardens might be a good spot for that. And if people were gardening and had their weekly compost collected, it would give them a good excuse to go out there and at least once a week do a little gardening, dump their compost. So anyway, just tossing that out as an idea.
Yeah. Give your compost to the earthworms. It's a good idea. Lots of things that people are doing. I took a permaculture class a number of years ago, and we talk about creating a food forest for the community. It could be like community-wide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to go back very quickly to number 16. So Jim Hook says that, okay, now I've lost it. LEPC stands for Local Area Planning Committee. So, Jim, are they not able to figure out area is spelled with an A as opposed to an E? Because I just double checked the headers and it is LE.
Local emergency planning.
That might be what it is. I'll try to clear it up. But Jim, thanks for getting on that because I was totally lost. Okay, going back to number 20, Luann, the March 24th, 2022 Planning and Zoning meeting.
Okay, yes, I attended that meeting, and that is one that's on YouTube if you want to check it out. But their main reason for setting a special meeting was so that they could finish up the zoning edits and pass it off to town council. So they did not have any word back from Chris McEnany, our attorney, to know whether or not how many mailings we need to do, how many public hearings. If the topic is there, is that enough to get the feedback and then make adjustments and change it? Or if we need to mail out more mailings to get the finals done. So they sent it to town council with different color codes. If it's something that was specifically addressed, not just the topic, if it was specifically addressed, they did it one color. If it was on the topic, but something that came up later, it's in another color. So for instance, the C3 kennel idea, kennels were discussed, but not specifically exactly which zone they would go in. So that was one question, but that they have passed off to us. They voted to pass it off, and that was the reason for their special meeting. One of the topics was the 30-foot setbacks. They did not make a recommendation on that. They passed that on. Residential dwellings was discussed. Right now, it's single dwelling are allowed in commercial zones, but not like a duplex or an apartment building. Most in international zoning code, no residential units are allowed in commercial zones, so that you don't have apartment buildings next to a restaurant or, whatever. You don't make people live up on the highway. That's sort of the goal of it, but they feel like Bluff is a different setup. So that was one of the issues. Let's see. They also had consensus to refer to San Juan County building permits and to decide when an LUC was triggered or land use clearance. So if it's a certain size, if there's a certain amount of remodeling, you refer to San Juan County building permits in order to decide that. So that was the gist of the meeting. I don't think there was anything else that their minutes were sent out to us. And then, like I say, the whole meeting was on YouTube if you want to see the whole thing. I was able to stream them completely.
Good job, Lou.
And then they do meet again tomorrow night.
All right, then moving to the report on the March 21st, 2022 County Economic Development meeting, Linda.
So we met about goals for this coming year. We had $5,000 left over from the business grants that we had given out because they didn't accept one of them, and ended up giving them to 3 of the tour operators in the county. We approved a contract with Wayfinding to create standard signage throughout the county for tourism. And they have something like that a couple other places. Vernal in particular has signage that tourists can follow, and they're all in the shape of a dinosaur or have a dinosaur on them. I don't know which. And so that's what they're looking for in the county to do throughout the county. So there would be something, say, pointing to goosenecks so that tourists could be looking for something specific. When Natalie started this, towns were able to give input about what they might want So I assume that's going to be coming up too. And in October, we're having a Shark Tank, an entrepreneurial Shark Tank, where people can submit projects or products, and through a system, someone eventually wins the Shark Tank and gets some seed money, around $5,000, I think, to put their business or idea. So that'll be coming up and getting to the businesses.
Thanks, Linda. Any questions?
Thank-
So, number 22, I forgot to fill in the date. I talked to Clayton Holt on March 16th. The conversation occurred because someone in the community had asked about the status of a clinic that may be built by public health, or a little bit of confusion about UNHS. So I talked with Clayton, and the bottom line is, while UNHS may be wanting to move pretty quickly, there really isn't any hard plan by anyone to set up a clinic in Bluff. UNHS and the public health San Juan Health Organization have been talking about who could do it and who wants to do it and how quickly, how things would be funded. But the bottom line is there's nothing imminent or planned coming in. Then 23 other, Michael Bryant, who has been with Southeastern Utah area, local, my brain doesn't do these well, Sulak. He has left and taken a job as a city planner. And then Amber Johnson, the manager from the BLM in Monticello, she too has left. I sent them, because we didn't have a meeting, and because they were leaving sooner than this meeting, I sent them a thank you card from all of us as to the support that they've given us. And certainly with both of them, they'll be missed, but boy, I don't know how stepping into Michael Bryant's shoes is going to be possible. He knows so much, but I'm sure that whoever they've replaced him with will do a good job.
Oh yeah, he's great. He's really helpful. He's super helpful. He's been great. A fellow U of U graduate, so I'm all behind him.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have another or how are we doing? Lou?
Yeah, I just have one other comment, and that is just there are multiple things on this agenda, but lots of other things that I just appreciate that you're keeping tabs on, and that becoming a town has let us have a voice in so many different things, all these different committees and all these different areas. So just watching the county, being involved in all these things, I just appreciate that. And I'm glad that we're a town because we have a say and we have a seat at the table at all these different tables.
Thank you. I think that has been one really big plus for us with incorporation, is whether you wanted it or you didn't, that we've gotten a seat at the table, and it's been really important. Anybody have another or it's 7:37?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Have a good trip, Mayor.
Thank
We'll
you.
miss you next week.
I won't be that gone, Lou. Don't.
No.
So reminder to
No meeting next week.
Yeah, no meeting next week.
We'll send something out. See y'all later.
Adios.
Yep, good night.
Good night.
Adjourn.
Lou.